Hey, everybody, it's Tony Buffum, co founder and chief strategy officer of Human Cloud. And I'm really excited to be here with a friend of mine, Kimberly Lee. Kim, welcome to the Human Cloud podcast.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it.
Now, Kim, I'm really excited to have you on because we met a while ago in different lives. Tell us a little bit about that meeting, and then let's talk about how we've taken different paths since then.
Yeah. I was invited to come to an Upwork event that you were speaking at and hosting and part of the organization. And I had a coworker who was far more, he was definitely more outgoing than me. So he and I came up, and he actually was approaching you about something completely different, more on the recruiting side, and kind of trying to strategize around that. But you and I made that connection, and that was super awesome. And so I do have him to thank for that. I was working as a vice president of talent management at a software company, and we were looking at utilizing that platform to help with our staffing and trying to get some understanding of how we can offshore and do things like that. So it was definitely a different world than where we're at right now.
Yeah, well, I think that it's really cool because the same event years before is where I met Matt Matola, the co-founder of Human Cloud. So it's clear that Upwork has done a great job in feeding the ecosystem of people that are thinking about the future of work in general, in leveraging tools and people that are kind of, I think, leaning into the change and transformation versus waiting to see what will happen. And I go to a lot of events, and there's a lot of HR or talent leaders that are more in the wait and see, whether it's because of them or because they're in an organization that is just very, resistant to change, very traditional, and or high risk, which means they can't, play around with new technology too much. But like we said, after Upwork, I'm at Human Cloud. Where did you go after being uh, VP of talent at that organization?
Well, I left in January of 2024, and I was out. I think it was about 10 months. I actually went to work for a nonprofit shortly after, or next. But in that 10 months, also started my own business. So I started it really with the intent of doing some consulting. But that's a tough market. You can
Yeah.
get some clients, but the work that I love to do, my passion, and what people, especially in the area I live in, are looking for. They're more standard HR stuff, which is great and perfect, and I can do. But that's not where my heart and passion is.
All right. So now let's talk about your passion. And then maybe even before we get into that a little bit, I'll back up and just provide the context. You've been in HR for pretty much your career, right? Tell me a
Yes.
little bit about your career background, and that'll help us give some framework and context for what you're doing now.
Yeah. So my started my career in HR as a kind of a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, but I was putting myself
By
through
accident.
college
Maybe that's
by
what we mean.
accident. There we go. That's
Yeah.
a better one. And I was putting myself through college. I was working at a software company, and I had a great boss who would let me go off to San Jose State and take some classes in and out, trying to make sure I finished school. And I was working in HR. I started as like an HR admin, and just kind of by the time I graduated college with my degree in liberal studies, because I wanted to be a teacher, I was in HR and I was loving it. And so I ended up, eventually going back to school to get my MBA. But um, in the meantime, I left college and had a job that was great. I had a boss that was great. I worked at a software company in Silicon Valley, and so that's kind of how I started my career, and have worked in a variety of different places, from tech and high tech intel, to healthcare, nonprofit. I've just kind of been all over the place as far as industry goes, but I think that gives me a breadth of knowledge as far as things that are challenges across the board. Doesn't matter what industry it is, doesn't matter who's in, who's in charge, any of that, who's funding it. There's some commonalities within the HR space that I think that any HR practitioner comes across.
Well, there a few things I like about your background. One, you fell into HR. Lots of people fall in not a lot of people go to school and think, "Yeah, I wanna do HR when I get out of here," myself
Mhm.
included. But you discover it, and you discovered it, and as you're pursuing that career in HR, you decide to get your MBA, which a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'll go get, a master's in, HR, human resources management," which I think is a really smart call that you made sure to get that business acumen side. If you listen to probably one of the more recent podcasts I gave, we spent it wasn't even our podcast. We spent a lot of time talking about the best HR leaders having a real business acumen, understanding, the full balance sheet and being able to have those conversations with the CEO, CFO, et cetera. And with that perspective, the marriage of your business background, your HR background, not only can you have a big impact on the organization, but you can really see a lot of those themes and commonalities from both an HR and business lens and where they merge and where they create bigger challenges down the line, which I feel like gets us to where you are at now. After all that experience in different industries, totally different environments. You got a chance to think independently outside of your last job. And what is it that you decided to pursue?
Well, I first started with a book, and I think that, in taking the time between, looking for a job and consulting, keeping myself busy. So I really just started to jot down ideas. I didn't know that I was going to write a book, and it kind of came out. I was talking to a peer here in the Sacramento area, and he was really encouraging. He's like, "You just do it," and it helped me kind of form that a whole plan, and really go from just writing just write um, to writing a book. In the course of that, the book itself is kind of a playbook. And one thing in leading a whole bunch of L&D teams and a lot of those programs and coaching and doing a lot of that stuff within my career, I think it's kind of common. There's two common themes. People get promoted into a management role who have no training. They have really good at their job, and there's a career path, and that's next level, and they don't do a lot of training, and organizations don't invest a lot, or they do. They might do a leadership workshop, or we used to have at Power School. I built out a whole series of management, kind of prep. But, once you get there, it doesn't it you it's hard to, keep it going. It's hard to
Yeah.
keep that front of mind. You get back to work, and all of those great things that you learned, and you get inspired, and you take away and all your notes and everything else, you get back into the daily, and you default into what you had been doing because that's just how we are as humans. So, I took the book and I created an app. So I have an application, and this is, I guess, where some of that IT comes in from the MBA and some of those other things. But and I just fully have embraced AI. So I went out and figured out how to create this app myself, and it's based on the framework of my book. And the whole purpose, the whole thought process between those two things is the app is great, and certainly can stand alone. But if you have a book and then you have a tool to help you keep that going, hopefully that training and that thing, everything sticks.
I like that. It all feeds this ecosystem, and you're putting all the pieces together to allow organizations not only to just implement coaching as a practice, which, or I shouldn't say coaching, leadership development, as a practice and coaching along with it, but to sustain it. And to your point, that's often what the fall off is. And I'm sure a lot of L&D folks can attest to. They put together these great management training programs kind of in hopes that at least a third will stick so that when they come around for the next tranche, maybe they can build on that. But you don't want to be wasting, like, think of the time that you invest in pulling leaders out of their roles so you can do some training with them just for them to go back and now a bunch of that is lost either in translation or just in they're busy. Like you get them into development mode, then they go back to operator mode, and it's kind of like flushed out of their brain as they just get back to running the business. So tell us a little bit about how you've tried to integrate that sustainability with the combo of the app, the book, and really within this whole system.
Yeah. So, and kind of another iterative process, which I think that these come about. This has been, I will say, about 2 years now, and I came to the idea of putting the consulting back into my business. Meaning, the book is great. I encourage everybody to get it,
Of
of course,
course.
and share it with your friends. But there's the book, and that's a playbook, and I think that that's really actionable. And
Well, and real quick, what's the name of the book? Because I'm realizing we both have talked about it, but we haven't said it.
so it's a longer title. Publisher, yeah, added to it. So it's building a coaching culture, the ripple effect on performance and growth. And it comes out March 12th, is when it's supposed to be out there. It is on Amazon for pre-order, or in this case, it's probably out there for order now.
Okay,
Um,
great.
yeah, so I was
And
fortunate.
by the time we share this, we'll make sure, like on LinkedIn at least, and we'll include the link so people that are interested, they can go check out the book. That's a good place to start. If they're curious, they hear what you're saying and they like the idea, get the book of the playbook. And then it sounds like as soon as they get the book, they're going to want the app. So I know you're just about to start talking a bit more about the app.
Yeah, so the app is based on the framework from the book. So it's kind of that, and what the app does is it is you start out with a leadership assessment, so you kind of understand what where you're starting at, and then it is coaching sessions. From my experience and training as in coaching, it's not a tool that's going to tell you exactly what you need to do. It's going to walk you through and ask you questions and help you get to kind of the end result. There's whether it's for one-on-ones or your own development, you just want to figure out better communication, whether you're a project manager and you're leading a project more than people. um, it has different kind of levels for whatever you're looking for. Ends up with actionable items. So you have this, you schedule it just like you would a regular coach. And you can attach it to your computer, your calendar, I should say. So you have regular coaching sessions. So it stays top of mind. It stays invested. It can help you prepare for meetings and one-on-ones and all of those things ahead of time, so you feel more prepared. But it's really taking that the information from the book, which is truly a playbook, but putting it into a real life, actionable tool to help develop.
I like so it and this is an AI-based tool, so it's very customized and very conversational for the person that's going through the training or the sustained coaching. I like that you described it helping you prep for different, events that happen throughout your week, not just like executive presence. Like it's not just which there's nothing wrong with that. That's an important thing to coach on, but it's so much of executive coaching is around career coaching and around kind of the broader more strategic thinking. Um, this sounds like they can leverage it also for just kind of day to day, which is to your point, when you get promoted and you have to start doing these things, you don't have experience. That can be really nerve wracking and you don't really know what to do if you haven't practiced it before.
Exactly, and especially if you're getting into, say just the standard one-on-ones. We go into those, and they default into just kind of give me an update on, status update on these projects, things that whatever you're working on, your top priorities, your wins, your blockers, that kind of thing. Those are great. But one thing I think managers, and until they get it, um, don't understand is that's also a development opportunity for your staff. So leading into that conversation, you can kind of plan out that meeting. If you're planning for a difficult conversation, maybe it is a coaching opportunity where you have an employee who needs some development on that side. You can play out and role play those scenarios and kind of come away with some a conversation starter and how to manage that. And then you can follow up with the coach and let it know how it goes. So is that iterative process as well? Because it's that Claude AI
Yeah.
based, so it will learn and grow with you, but still within the framework of my book.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Claude because there's a lot that we do within Human Cloud. I mean, we're a little startup, just a handful of people trying to make the best. And so, of course, the more that we've experimented with Claude, especially for us on the marketing side, the more that we've been like, oh wow, what else can we do? I would think even just 5 years ago, if you're like, this book is great, but man, it'd be great if there was a tool to go along with it. The idea of breaking through on the development side would have been like, "Oh, am I gonna have the resources? Am I gonna have the time to really get this together so that these align the right way?" But as we all know, Claude and other tools has accelerated that, like, and made it so accessible like nothing else. And this whole time I've been thinking, I wanna know more about your journey in both writing the book and creating the app and coming up with this system, because I think a lot of folks listening not only care about the tool and the capabilities that you created, but I think they also care about, wow, how did you do this? Because there's probably HR folks out there that are really inspired by this story, and have thought about consulting, but also recognizing these days consulting alone probably isn't enough. So maybe let's
Right.
start with the book. Just we talked a little bit about the motivation to write the book when you had a little more time, but what was that experience like? How you know just tell us about what
Yeah.
that journey of writing the book was like first.
Well, so I used AI, and I think truly AI made it something that was actionable for me. I put all the writing in. I did this, so everything is mine. I will say that. But doing some research, it's like help me find, and then of course you have to validate. I will say that you have to trust and verify what they say.
Yeah.
But help me go out and do some of this research. Like help me find some stats on what I'm saying here, and then go out and look for it. But it is kind of that research partner for you and thought partner as well. I use it as that is, very much as, do you think that this would how do you think that this would play out? And, I know they also wanna be your friends. They support you, but, I find that, depending on how you ask the question, it will give you, some answers, and then sometimes, it goes off. As long as you know your boundaries and that you can't just say, "Okay," I think that there was an attorney just recently, a second attorney, who just got in trouble for, using AI to write draft something for court. You can't do that. But certainly, I was able to put the framework in and kind of do some editing and revisions and thought process, thinking partner kind of thing with AI. So, and I use different tools, trying to make sure it was balanced and, as far as the research goes and even editing and where I could add more or, kind of I rambled too much, that kind of thing, which I tend to do.
Yeah. And listen, we all do, especially HR folks. I have a reputation for
Yes.
that. And it's not like you just did this all in a vacuum. You're still working with a publisher, you're getting feedback, and so there's multiple humans in the loop. But what was it surprising to you? I mean, you've worked with LLMs before, so maybe not dramatically, but just like you said, it sounded like it made writing the book that much more accessible, where maybe it would have felt like a bigger hurdle before. Is that maybe the kind of um, biggest realization, or were there other kind of surprises along the way in that journey?
Well, I think for me, a lot of it was having I'm sorry, my cat would like to join our
It's
conversation.
all right.
So,
We've had animals
um
on the podcast many times.
so it was you know, to say it was a thought partner, it really was. It was, being able to have a conversation,
Yeah.
with someone as I'm going through that, and it helped me, keep going with the process. So, as with many things, when you're trying to create, those ideas come at different places. You in the grocery store, oh my gosh, I really, so you try and jot something down. And then I was able to use the tool to kind of flesh out that idea. And yes, I had, my publisher and the editors and that kind of thing. All of that went through. I certainly had some of the people in the book, as case studies, review it and let me know kind of like what their thoughts were. And so again, that iterative process, getting feedback along the way, not just, here's what I think is my final product. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So that sounds like a really rewarding experience. And maybe by the time you were done, and now that the book is coming out, what do you hope the impact of the book is? What do you hope people uh understand, or maybe that's new for HR or any other function that leverages this book, uh either just for their own development or for the organization?
I think, I'll just say there's a lot of chaos going on right now, and I feel like if I can make a difference at the workplace,
Yeah.
maybe people will be a little happier in life. I don't know. I have some lived experiences where, you have a really difficult boss, and the work environment isn't great, and it's the impact that it has on you, personally, and how you leave that, how it, how it, really how it impacts how you feel about yourself. You go into, I'm hired. I think I know what I'm doing. Everyone has growth opportunities. I'm not saying everyone's perfect, but you get a boss who kind of kicks you and maybe isn't the most supportive or micromanaging or any of those things. And these aren't things that have to do necessarily with you as an individual. It is more on the leader and the manager. And so that's what I'm trying to impact is helping managers with a just really a playbook. And there are, examples in there, and there's even a little section of like, what if this is me, micromanaging or any of that. And and I try and make it, very approachable. There is theory in there and there's statistics, but it's the book is here's kind of we'll talk about coaching. I lead with Bill Belichick and Andy Reid. So I bring in sports, because there's a thing about coaching that happens with, top athletes or college athletes or even me as a high school swimmer, um, that happens, and it's just an ongoing. I want to do my best. I'm there to do something. Your coach wants you to do your best. The team wants to be the best. So, thinking in those terms, like how do you apply that as a manager? Is that assume the best of your team, and if I can coach and develop them, and have that great relationship and that a really good team, you're going to be more productive. You're going to accomplish a lot more. Your team's going to be happier. And I think everyone's going to, that's just one little, micro climate within an organization so that, but if that can expand and grow, there's a ripple.
Well, and there you go. I love that you bring up the ripple effect, which is a good segue into the AI tool, the
Mhm.
AI app, which is called Ripple.ai, right? Ripple IQ. I'm sorry, I totally screwed that up. Which is called Ripple IQ. So, tell us, I love the impact because certainly everybody wants to be a good manager. Nobody wants to be a bad manager that people leave. You work so hard on building teams. You want to motivate and retain and inspire your team to, just as you said, be their best. I love the referral to, what if this is me? Like there's people that are probably already managing folks and thinking about continuing to advance in their career, and recognizing there's things that they wish maybe their boss did differently, or that they need to change in their teams, but maybe that they need to work on improve themselves, which is the whole point of coaching. Okay, good. It all starts with admitting you have a problem. And once they identify the problem, they can work on it. How does the, we talked about a little bit before, but now let's talk about actually the app development. So we talked about the experience of writing the book. Now you're thinking about creating kind of a partner to the book. Tell me about how you just got over that hurdle of how do I even start?
Well, yeah. So I used one of the vibe coding tools that they call, and that was there was no way I was going to be able to pull this off all by myself if I had to do coding. I am an HR person. I am not a coder or anything. So that for sure made that this completely totally possible. Without that, I'd still have this vision and dream. And with that vision and dream was one of the things that I think people have some hesitation to is there is some in admitting that you have a problem, that you're trying to work on something, you want to have that safe space to kind of explore that, right?
Yeah.
The same as me writing a book. I didn't run around and tell everyone, "Hey, I'm writing a book," because there's a commitment level. I think, and the app is your tool. It is your space to explore things. If you're sitting, if you had a manager that you had the ability to do this with, which I can't imagine, if you sat and ran every scenario past your boss to say, like, what do you think? And as you're learning, that's not, nobody wants it. One, your boss doesn't have time for that, or they shouldn't. And two, you don't want to have those conversations all the time. Like, I'm getting ready for this one-on-one, and I'm a little concerned about this. We all have those feelings, regardless of where we are in our career. There's a thing that you have a little, you just want to work through and talk through. And, sometimes as HR professionals, we go into somebody's office and it's like, I just need to talk this out, and that's what this tool is for everybody. Coaching is expensive, and I fully support it. I think that, I am not trying to impact the management coaches or any of that. That is not my tool. I think that this would be a great tool for them to even supplement their coaching with. It is just really a safe space for a manager to go in and work through some scenarios and feel a little more prepared for conversations and grow and develop in areas that they feel. Even if they have a performance review and that's coming up, or 360 feedback, or any of those things, wherever that comes from, this is something that they can work on their own.
Now, always when we talk about AI and you talked about like the world being chaotic, AI is especially with, we just recently had the announcement from Block. They laid off a ton of their employees. Everybody's afraid of the impact on AI and jobs, and HR people included. They go, man, like, does this take a little bit more of the human out of HR? What I have an opinion about this, but what's your opinion about folks that kind of push back on using this for those more interpersonal interactions within your organization?
Well, so I with that in mind, I specifically have given some rules and guidance. So one, it's absolutely not going to be a therapist, because I think anyone who does coaching kind of feels like sometimes that there
Yeah.
it's not that. And it will point you to somebody else if it starts getting into that area.
Oh, that's
And
good.
it's focused on connection. Everything is, what are you going to do? Like, here's your plan, and you're going to talk to this person. You're going to connect with this person. And when you come back, you can tell the app how that went, and kind of explore things. So it's really helping you prepare so that those conversations go well. Those, you feel confident, and those, you can go into a staff meeting and feel good about what you're saying, and not kind of that some of those apprehensions. Yeah, I'm an introvert. So it always helps for me to kind of strategize and gameplay in my head, so that when I'm in a meeting, I'm ready to act and speak.
Yeah, I so absolutely. It helps. I like that you said it creates that safe place, that sandbox where you can experiment, you can get feedback, and you don't have to get on someone's schedule, or you don't have to kind of feel like you have to confront or be confronted or etc. I think for HR folks, this is the same way you described it for executive coaches. this is a great tool to embrace because you can't be a part of every conversation. You can't coach someone before every one-on-one, etc. But if you can have someone that's elevating their game with this level of coaching, if you're leveraging this as a tool so you know the feedback they're getting. Now you're talking about how this has helped. You can elevate your game as an HR person by helping to coach through a higher level of challenges, opportunities, etc. So I feel like it really tools like this allow HR to take on more. We're already taking on too much. Seen it. There's such a high level of turnover in HR because the bandwidth is really stretched. I think a lot of it's because HR is so far behind in digital transformation. Um, and they're going to be even further behind in this AI transformation. So finding tools that they can leverage rather than be threatened by will give them so much more opportunity to be productive, have a bigger impact on the organization. But I think more importantly, as Robin Jasuthasan and John Boudreau talk about, but Robin, I think I should say Robin especially did a really cool analysis of what he thought the impact of AI was going to be, pre and post on HR. And it's we're going to do more of what we want to do in HR, which is the higher level engagement interaction with our teams, with our managers, and overall for the business. So with that, what does the ecosystem application of this look like in practice? So someone that's listening and thinking, this sounds cool. How does it all work together? How should I think of that ecosystem if that's something I want to dig into?
Yeah, so and the ecosystem is kind of the two end caps that we talked about, the book and the app, and then in between as a service that my company provides is working with HR leaders or whomever is and looking at org health data, and trying to strategize what the organization needs for this. Start with reading the book. That's your homework. And, my homework is to do the analysis and come up with some strategies on what we're going to be focusing on. Run a couple of workshops. Now, all of that is very standard, right? You do the analysis, come in and do the workshop. Where it differs, there's the book, there's the workshops, and then there's the application. And then we can take data from those and go back to you as a CHRO or head of an organization and look at the impact and look at how this tool is being used. And we can go 30, 60, 6 months out and look and track how the progress has been, as opposed to, because we have the data in our app. We have my longer term is, an enterprise edition. I don't have that yet. Still, just me. But, once I can get to that point, it would, but the goal is to have dashboards and things like that, so leaders can actually continue to manage and track the utilization and the progress.
But I like that, at least right now, they can partner with you directly and really understand what what the gaps are, how this is helping to fill those gaps, and then not only that, how then do you share that with the rest of the organization? Are there a couple of, we're all metrics driven. Are there a couple of, or a handful of metrics that you feel like those that are thinking, oh, I needed I'm gonna have to justify this ROI. Um, what are the key metrics that they'll want to focus on, or that you think you can help them impact?
Well, I think the difference in the approach is looking at the type of leadership you have. So if we do, I have an enterprise level assessment. So if we do that within the organization, and then we can, similar to, how DISC and things like that, you can look at, do you have a lot of coaches here? What are your different leadership styles? And how does that
Sure.
overlay with the impact of your team? Does this team seem to have a lot of turnover more, looking at that org health? So taking the data that I have and the data your organization has, and does this overlay? And then we can track those specific, every organization has a different problem. They might all feel the same. We have high turnover or whatever. But the reasons you and I both know, the reason for that turnover isn't always the same. And so helping to specifically focus on those areas within that management gap, which, as we started out talking about, there's just a lot of people get promoted to be a manager. That's part of the career path. But organizations just don't have the money and the funds and the resources to do the in-depth training that those folks need. And that's kind of where that gap is and how we can fill that.
Yeah, I think I can think, unfortunately, in my own experience, of a lot of situations where we promoted somebody because they were the best one on the team, and then there was a gap, there was some kind of leadership vacuum, and we put them in that role, and then they struggle in the role, and we end up letting them go, and we're kind of or demoting them or moving them into a different role. I kind of felt like, man, maybe we shouldn't have promoted them, or maybe we should give them more tools to help make sure they were successful once they're in the role. And too often, we're moving at a million miles an hour, trying to keep up with all the changes in the organization and just get people slotted. And you just want everybody to step up and be their best. But how much does it just stink to have that kind of turnover, especially when you know it could have been avoided with a little bit more investment or the right tools available to scaffold them in this transition?
Exactly. That I think that is it's always a really difficult thing, and they leaders will wonder, like, I don't understand. They were doing great until this point. Managing is a whole different it's just a whole different skill set, and it's not one there might be people who are natural leaders, but that doesn't mean they know how to manage. Doesn't mean they know exactly how to do
Yeah.
that. They know how to get people together, but everybody needs a little coaching and training. There's I have seen previous organizations where somebody who's a micromanager gets way up there as into the C-suite, or high level, and that micromanagement got them to a certain level, and now they're in a position where that's how they think that is how they're going to have to continue. And if you are on an executive level and you've got executives underneath you, um, everybody has, we've all grown and developed, and so don't need a micromanager. We need a leader. One of my clients that I support, I told her, "We need you to steer the ship, not row the boat." And, I think that there's that gap, and, helping when you're further down, understand that, there's the delegation and there's some of those other pieces that, you have to build that trust. You have to understand how to make that happen. And then you can see how the impact and the benefit that you and your team get. Because who
Well, I
wants
like
to
the
do
idea.
everything?
Micromanaging is a really good example or use case because I like the idea of I'm just thinking in prepping for one-on-ones or following up from those. That can be such a micromanagement moment, especially for those of us that that's most y the early part of my career, I feel like as a manager, I was very micromanaging because I felt like, well, that's why I've been promoted because I know how the right way to do things. So I just got to create a bunch of little mini me's. And then, if you mature, you realize, no, everybody's good. Everybody brings their own different things to the table. Let's figure out what's best and then help that blossom versus try to control. And that's takes a lot of feedback and coaching, and your employees or your team members probably aren't going to give you the feedback. Hopefully there's somebody else that will, but if seem like they're going all right, you're probably not going to unless you've got, that extra external support that's just giving you feedback on your style and recognizing and helping you prep in a different way, pushing back on maybe what you think you should do, giving you suggestions for maybe a better way to do.
Exactly.
So what's what's the best way? So as we're wrapping this up, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you to learn more about the all this ecosystem that they can use? Where do you recommend they go?
You can go to my website. It's Lotic Systems, LOTIC Systems, and .com. You can go there and see the whole framework and from the book to the app and kind of what we do. So I would recommend starting there. If you just wanted to look at the app, it's rippleiq.net. It's a standalone thing. You can do a demo, check it out yourself, all free, and just kind of see if it's something that you could do. It starts out with an assessment, which is great. It's a kind of where I'm starting at, and then you kind of set some goals. Where do you want to go?
That's great. And should they also get in touch with you on LinkedIn? Or
Oh,
you have
absolutely.
Lodic has a page, you have a page. That's a great place for people to find you, reach out, start up a conversation, and learn more because you've got posts and you've got a really nice description. So I encourage people to go follow both you and Lodic System.
Yes, and it's Kaylee SPHR for LinkedIn. So
Perfect. Well, listen, congratulations on all of this. This is
thanks,
You
Tony.
create a whole different world than when we met years ago. So I know
Yes.
that is not easy to do no matter how much support you have from newfangled tools. So congratulations on this progress. I wish you the greatest success. I hope that we continue to stay in touch. And I'm so grateful that you joined me here on the Human Cloud podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great. It's been really awesome staying in touch with you. So thank you, and good luck on Human Cloud.
Thanks again.